Good morning. So last night we continued to look at our text on praise for dependent arising. And it was mentioned at the start of the class and several times throughout the class that what keeps us bound within the suffering experiences of cyclic existence are the negative karma we accumulate through our afflicted minds. And the very, very root cause of all these afflicted minds is our ignorance of self-grasping. And so it's this ignorance that is keeping us bound within the suffering states of cyclic existence. And the only way to eliminate this ignorance is to develop the contrary mind of wisdom. And as this is a particular type of ignorance, it requires a particular type of wisdom. And that is the wisdom realizing emptiness. And as Lama Tsongkhapa mentioned in the verse again last night, that amongst the many techniques that the Buddha taught to realize emptiness, the supreme, the very best method is that of dependent arising. And so this was explicitly taught, and then implicitly the motivation that we need to cultivate was also mentioned. Here we remind ourselves that this wish to be freed of suffering and to experience only lasting happiness is something shared with all beings. And we need to cultivate that understanding through the various levels of that meditation, various steps of that meditation, coming to the point where we take responsibility for other beings freeing themselves from suffering and other beings attaining a state of lasting happiness. And this sense of responsibility is the mind of special intention. And in order to take this mere intention to a point where we engage in action, then we generate the mind of bodhicitta where we commit to attaining Buddhahood for the sake of others. And in order to actually become a Buddha, to attain Buddhahood, then we have to abandon our afflicted minds. Without abandoning the afflicted minds, one cannot attain enlightenment. And therefore, we have to realize emptiness, and to do that, meditate on dependent arising. So this is the sequence that we engage in, generating the mind of bodhicitta, and using that as a motivation to engage in meditation on dependent arising in order to realize emptiness.
good in to Giri, Delatin, the Yungule said it, and Jashi Namsha Tigma, yes, Rashi Majubaina, and the yes, and Tigo
Today then we'll continue with the text and we'll look at the relationship between inherent existence and the law of cause and effect, or karma. The presentation will show that because phenomena lack inherent existence, they are able to function. In other words, causes that lack inherent existence can produce results that also lack inherent existence. Whereas if the converse were true, if causes were inherently existent, they couldn't produce any result. Or likewise, if a result were inherently existent, it couldn't come about in dependence on a cause. So that's what we'll look at this morning. In last night's presentation, in last night's talk, we spoke about how all phenomena lack inherent existence. No phenomenon, no phenomenon has any self-existence or has any nature that is inherent to it. And the reason for establishing this is that phenomena come about independently. We also heard last night, though, that is the understanding of the highest Buddhist philosophical view, the view of the Prasangika. All other Buddhist philosophical view holders, the Svatrantika and below, when they reflect on dependent arising, they see that if a phenomenon arises in dependence on something else, it has to exist inherently. If something exists, it has to have its own inherent nature. It must be self-existent. So therefore, when the non-Prasangika Buddhists reflect on dependent arising, it leads to their grasping at inherent existence actually growing and strengthening. And we also heard them last night that for non-Buddhists, they don't actually even accept the view of dependent arising because according to their philosophy, the phenomena come about due to the power of their creator God. So they say their creator God created things. And therefore they don't accept the presentation on dependent arising. And the conclusion that Jay Rinpoche presented last night was that when the non-Prasangikas, when they reflect on dependent arising, this cannot then lead them to come to realize emptiness, because when they reflect on dependent arising, their grasping at inherent existence grows and strengthens because of their view that if something exists, it has to have its own self-nature, its own inherent existence. And with this view strengthening, it's impossible for them to realize emptiness. And that brings us to the 11th verse. For you, when emptiness is eventually perceived in terms of the meaning of dependent arising, being empty of inherent existence and the validity of action and agent will not contradict.
there, Kenny Namshe Tombai, the she Karsumare Lana, Tenting some dance and the Rashi Dawa, Oma, the Radio Macheta, and the Chiruba, the some Rashi to be done by the door to be doing the Rashi to buy some of the shoe children tools. Kenny is the San German and Turon is over that. San German and Turan, Yama, and Jebache, and the Rashi and the Jachu Sem, the Ninja, the Jachu Sem Bomche, and the Jinso, Jiba, the children sweeping Yamenche, Digalea, and Kuran, Tianjin, Drew, some Dadu, some Danya, and teaching the teaching Tianjin Namja, some Danya, and the Kurangi, and the Tianjin Namja, some Della, Tiania, and Tamadela, Cardosh, Namshi, Tamadela, and the Kurangi. 却他们去对你主我的看来我就人们这个动物的没法动物的没法多法的实际上哪些这个动物的多法的也就是去年那些动物一些
Tieni conto di Geshe Thubten Rabten come tendo piccola mambo con piazzane tieni di tamete
toba adesso
e dentro tutto compagnie tutto
ogni coscido ne va con san giunde con da san mai ni si ro ci già sempre ne va che ko jam ni je ane ja sim ji ba lo so ko chu dim nyam ne je di ga ya ane ten ji nam sha che ba ndu che ba ne ane ine ten ji nam sha che ba le ten ne ta ma de ya ra xin yu zhu bi che ta mi ga ne xin ra xin yu zhu bi dong ba de do ba de ye什么的确认nam sha dong ba yi se
Looking at the first line and bearing in mind what we covered last night, here then we were reminded that non-prasangikas, so those who hold the philosophical view of the Vaibhashika and the Sautrantika, the Chittamarjans and the Svajrantikas, as well as non-Buddhists, they cannot come to realize emptiness. Because even when they reflect on dependent arising, it just leads to their grasping at inherent existence growing, or their belief that phenomena exist inherently strengthening. So therefore, they are unable to realize emptiness. However, on the other hand, for you, or this which refers to here Buddha Shakyamuni, when the being that was to become Buddha Shakyamuni generated love and compassion and then bodhicitta, engaged in the various meditations on the perfections of generosity and ethical conduct, and patience and joyous perseverance, concentration and wisdom, always combining with reflecting on dependence arising, came to understand how one thing depends on another, how phenomena exist as mere imputations by mind. And in this way, he came to realize that phenomena lack or are void of inherent existence. In this way, he came to realize emptiness. And as we heard last night, that if a phenomena existed inherently, that means that that phenomena has some inherent nature to it, hence inherently existent, or it has some self-existence to it. It exists by way of its own nature. And if that were the case, it wouldn't be dependent. It wouldn't need to depend on anything else, because it exists by way of its own nature. It has this inherent existence. The Buddha, though, through his meditation on the basis of love and compassion and bodhicitta, and whilst engaging in the various meditations and practices of the perfections, was reflecting on dependence arising and coming to see how all phenomena exist in dependence on imputation or on causes and conditions. So in this way, he came to see that phenomena cannot be inherently existent because that would mean they are not dependent, they are independent. Rather, he came to see that all phenomena are dependent arisings and therefore are empty of inherent existence. In this second line, perceived in terms of the meaning of dependence arising, this line here points out that essence or the essential meaning of emptiness. Emptiness is understood by way of understanding dependence arising. That phenomena are not independent, they are dependent. Dependent on causes and provisions, dependent on imputation. And in this way, one comes to understand that they are not independent, but rather they are dependent. And therefore, being dependent on something other than themselves, they lack self-nature, they lack inherent existence. So that is the essential meaning of emptiness. And looking at the concluding two lines of this verse, starting with the first and third, being empty of inherent existence. So this then relates, of course, clearly to the line that preceded it. All phenomena are dependent, or dependent arisings. So that means they cannot be independent. If they're dependent, they cannot be independent. And being dependent, it shows that they are empty of inherent existence. Because if they were inherently existent, they would not be dependent. So if a phenomenon is empty of inherent existence, then it is a dependent arising. So this is what we saw last night and we've looked at now this morning. And what this means then is we come to the fourth line. Then the validity of action and agent will not contradict. In other words, then cause and effect can function. A result comes from a cause. So we say this again then. Let's say a cause then, being empty of, a cause is a phenomenon, an existent. It therefore is a dependent arising and therefore empty of inherent existence. Being empty of inherent existence, being a dependent arising, it means it's dependent one thing on another. So therefore, a cause can produce a result. Likewise, a result can come from a cause, because both a cause and a result are empty of inherent existence, are dependent arisings. So, because all existence, all phenomena that exist, are empty of inherent existence, are dependent arisings, then phenomena existing in dependence one on the other, then a cause leads to a result, or conversely, a result comes from a cause. And this shows that phenomena change, that phenomena can develop and improve in terms of oneself, one's spiritual progression. That is possible. One can develop further. You see that the last two words here in the fourth line, not contradict. This then relates directly to what we looked at last night, where we looked at contradictory. So this then is referring to the non-Prasangika Buddhists who hold an understanding about reality that is contradictory. So their understanding, as we recall from last night, is that if something exists, it has to have its own self-nature, it needs to be inherently existent. If something lacks its own self-nature or is not inherently existent, it is a non-existent. So this is the view of the non-Prasangikas. And holding that view, then according to them, if something comes about dependently, it has to be, as an existent, inherently existent. So that is their view, that if something exists, it is inherently existent. If something is a dependent arising, it exists, so it has to be inherently existent. So that, the Prasangika says, is contradictory. How can something be inherently existent and dependent on something else. So, because if something is inherently existent, it is not dependent on anything. But then you say that it is also dependent arising. That is contradictory. And that is what this term contradictory refers to here in our final word. What the Buddha came to understand, though, is that dependent arising and emptiness are not contradictory. The Buddha came to understand the harmony between dependent arising and emptiness. The Buddha came to understand that phenomena exist as dependent arisings, phenomena exist dependently, and therefore are not inherently existent. Because something is dependent, is not independent. Not being independent is not inherently existent. So the Buddha came to understand the harmony between dependent arising and emptiness, whereas the lower tenets, the non-prasangikas, for them there is a contradiction in their understanding between dependent arising and emptiness.
And in the Ranjuba Manchega person, and the Shiro Shichik, and the Shiro Shikarina, and the Shingro Shina, Medoro Shina, and then Medodi, Rashi Tubare Labiandu, and the Gondakasa, Ramedodi, Inter Labiandu, Medodi Rashi Matuba de Mare, Rashi Matuba de Shabi, Medodi Rashi Matuba de Latugo, because the Inter Rashi Tuba Shabi, the Rashi Matuba is Latugo. That Medodi Rashi Matuba de Lana, Kelebana, Medodi Inter in the Kelatugo, Rashi Matuba Medodi Mama
Is that in the family?
Medodi Shirushi, Medoda Shavana, Medodi Rashi Matubares, Kelebaina, Rashi Madonna in the Meva Char, Tinti Sinamja Shatugo, that Rashi Medodi Tinti in Namjari, you don't gain the dinner to what you want to go, chicken dinner, you want to go, Medodi Tinti by the Shadu, Kele Shadu, and the Medodi Rashi Matu, Rashi Juba Shadu, just a Rashi Matubares. Shatugo, just a country Shatugo. Sanye Germany, Kurangi, Medoti, Dashin, Jibi, Sena, and Rashi to the Tongares, or Rashi, Dashin, Jibi, Sena, and Rashi to a Guinea, and Rashi to the Tombani. Tombani in there, and then Tany Ya, and Medoti, and Guyabata, Medoti Koron, Yachel, Medoti Yaboshayana. And the Gazam Chile, Medodima, Meva China, English China, the Nigga Jawada Chebi, Namshati, Shichik, Medochi, Medochi, Tela, Kunzu, Namshata, Donna, Namsha, Iga Shatu, Strom, Sayajum, the Kawari News, Shichik, Tela, Donna, Tony said, Kunzu, Mikawa, Shatu, Usan, Kerami, Kunzu, Deba, Donna. The non developed Tony, who developed Tony Maigi, Jessica Namshati. She's a Shichi Tendu, and then rushing to the Tombadia, Dus, Shatu, and then Kunzu Timba, Jessica Namshati, Shatu. Jessica, Java, and Jessica Namshati, Shatu. She's a dinner, Karongi, Shichi Tendu, rushing to the Tomba, and then Jessica Kunzu. 10年的这些南山的些马个米个外头下土都是，但光做上去我们这个下土都是可是点点那家伙那七八千那哪些马主吧马哪些主吧的，哪些主上马主吧人呢，早一点没法查出来，这点点那么马一般查的是，光这个事情的了，样了，你看交通没多，上去跳了嘛，今天交通的，原来对嘛是要不然下现在呀，点点那么些天美团的那么些，那个说说。 상기 결혼에 kenje 하나만 두지는 마 이게 kenje 남자 소화 맞아야 그래야 쓰네요 제스
그러니까 이 상기 kenje
상기 kenje 남자 되네 다시 남자 차사 하고 이제 만 두지는 마送的送맞아야 그래야 쓰네 제를 지게 맞아야这个土搞修全呀掉那土的地主啊掉不了吧
Non-prasangikas investigate a phenomenon, so it can take any basis, any phenomenon, we take an easy one, a flower. So if they investigate a flower, and they believe or come to see that it is a dependent arising, then for them this exists, and if it exists, it has to have its own self-nature, be inherently existent. So therefore, if they assert that this flower is a dependent arising, they cannot say that it is also empty of inherent existence. Because if it's a dependent arising, it has to exist inherently. So hence, they have a contradiction here. Likewise, if they say that a phenomenon, again maybe the flower, is empty of inherent existence, then they'll say that that phenomenon, the flower, doesn't exist. And if they say a phenomenon is non-existent, doesn't exist, of course you can't say it's a dependent arising. So this is the contradiction that the non-prasangikas have. They can assert something to be a dependent arising, but they can't also assert it to be inherently empty of inherent existence. Likewise, if they say something is empty of inherent existence, because that means it is non-existent according to them, it cannot be a dependent arising. So they have this contradiction. They can only assert one or the other. Buddha Shakyamuni, on the other hand, when he came to investigate any object, such as this flower, then he saw that it is empty of inherent existence, meaning that it is empty of being independent, of having its own self-nature, but yet it was able to change. Despite lacking its own self-nature, it was able to change. It could disintegrate, or it could grow, it could wither, etc. So he came to see that this flower, which is empty of inherent existence, is also dependent arising, because in dependence on causes and conditions it can change. But when investigating the same flower, no self-existent nature could be found at all. So therefore, it's empty of inherent existence, but it is also a dependent arising, dependent on causes and conditions and imputation. So this is a clear distinction between what Buddha Shakyamuni came to realize and teach us the Prasangika view, and what the non-Prasangikas hold. So the non-Prasangikas have this contradiction between emptiness and dependence arising, and cannot relate them both to the same object. Whereas the Buddha is able to relate both dependent arising and empty of inherent existence to the same object. So what that means then is the Buddha, through the Buddha's presentation, through the Prasangika view, then the two truths, the ultimate and the concealed truth or the conventional truth, can be applied to the same basis, to the same object. And that also then means that, as we see here in the fourth line, action and agent can function. They are valid, they can function. So the non-Prasangikas, they cannot assert the two truths onto a single basis, whereas the Prasangikas, in accordance with Buddha Shakyamuni's teaching, can do so. And so for this reason, I missed out one thing there with the two truths. So when the two truths are posited on a basis, let's say the flower, then the truth that is the ultimate truth, then that relates to its nature, emptiness, empty of inherent existence. That's the ultimate truth. And then the conventional truth will be that it is a dependent arising, etc., that it can change. And therefore, action and agent can function. Because of having taught this truth based on his own experience, Rinpoche here is praising Buddha Shakyamuni.
this. 자, 강에 와도 랑문에 두고 나와나 하시지 다신 집에서나 이만이야 동사치마도 배지가지. 나 마다 제가 맞아봐야나 아니 내가 아니 지지를 때마다 좋아져야 봐다. 아니觉得这个也吧，这些那些，你个台湾的，去干的几天呢，月吧的，那月吧的3kg现象还是什么的，别人俺都苏布鲁去呢，苏布的了呀，可干的都是怕俺那完了，对是大人这边子呢，东上这么的年面，但马这边呢，可俺苏布的怕苏着呀呐，俺苏布的不吃呐，人家来呀呐，人家个人。 자식이 남자 태되게 안지 나세 가사이네 나세 간이 두세데 제가 제나 다신 집에서는 예매되게 동상치마도 매 마다 마제바 전 잡아있나 아니 나세데 오미 제래가 리뷰에서 내가 있으면 상고 지금 공부하고 내지 기시에서 내 자와 뭐제 나리 이전에 판별 주고에서 자와 뭐제 제가 최근에 지나디 지리야 短的边南下的，工资边南下，你个每个月钱呢下土，反正全面去那个送吧，每个月就送下土。人家还不管的啦，用到娃娃呢，天就把这个还不管的，天就把，啊，对，现在的也还不管嘛，这是等等的。
What's just been said here is really important. So let's repeat what we just heard, and so. If you investigate any phenomenon, the first thing is to see how it appears, and then to investigate if it exists in that way that it appears. So whatever the phenomenon is, whether it's an external object or an inner object such as a mind, one needs to come to see how it appears to the mind and then investigate. And as we heard last night, that the way that it appears as if it exists by way of its own nature. In other words, it appears to be independent, not dependent on anything else. So that's how it appears. Then, as we heard in the meditation last night, when you investigate, looking for the object to see if it exists in the way that it appears, it cannot be found. And you drill down in the meditation, and you come to realize that it's empty of existing in the way that it appears. You realize emptiness. All that then appears is emptiness. It's empty of being independent, it's empty of being existed by way of its own nature. So this is the understanding of emptiness. So when we investigate for the phenomenon, we see we cannot find it, and we just come to a conclusion of emptiness. Yet when we don't investigate, that object can still function. So, and this is how we see that it's still a dependent arising. It can still produce results. Let's take then an illustration to hopefully make this clear. We went through the meditation last night looking for the self, but we'll just look at the body. So investigate the body like we mentioned last night, going through its various parts, and we see the way the body appears to our mind as if it exists independently of anything other than itself, having some kind of self-existence. This cannot be found. And we come to an understanding of emptiness, or we come to see emptiness. But then when we don't investigate, our body can still function. We're sitting, we're walking, sometimes our body feels a bit ill, etc. So our body then, if we look for its nature, if we look to see if it exists in the way that it appears rather, if we look for that, we see we can't find it, and we come to understand emptiness, yet it can still function. It can act as an action and agent will not contradict. So this then shows the validity of the two truths, the non-contradictory nature of the two truths on a single basis. And only Prasangika, amongst the various Buddhist philosophical views, only the Prasangika are able to understand this and realize this.
原理大大的没其他是义务了，就像大大的其他是没他，其他的没他是不了，没他，大大的其他是义务啊。太你写的了，大被他的，切被他写的，然后这大他写的，却他们这让心主把的是在上楼的，让心主把的大被他。让心主把的上班的大他的念法是不大他，就像却他们这让心马中呢，却可能现在没法查出过来上班的，没法查完的切他写的，就像让心马中呢，却没法查过来甚至上楼的切他的念法，切他基本上是说，就像大他的切他是义务的，大他人呢，却他们就让心主把的大他的，因为却他们就让心马中呢，却他可能是找一个没法查出来的切他写的，就像大他的切他义务。在今年在，商业专门的电梯的南下的了，这个东运多过来是个东运多，他们那边电梯送上去，像东运多上去，其他税务都是，而且人家其他明白，其他的税务都是，其他税务都是，因为电梯多上去，大家税务，他人税务。
We've heard previously about the two extremes. The two extremes are the extremes of eternalism and nihilism. So let's remind ourselves then what is meant by the extreme of eternalism and the extreme of nihilism. So the extreme of eternalism is believing that something exists by way of its own nature. It is self-existent. It's not dependent on anything else. It is inherently existent. That is the extreme of eternalism. Or it can be the, I think you have the sheets with the synonyms, the extreme of existence. Then there's the extreme of nihilism, or the extreme of non-existence. So this means that this extreme is the belief that if something doesn't exist by way of its own nature, it is non-existent. If something is not inherently existent, it is non-existent. That is the extreme of nihilism. The extreme of eternalism is, if something exists, it has to be inherently existent. So these are the two extreme views. What Lama Tsongkhapa is asserting, in accordance with the Prasangika view taught by the Buddha, is that if one realizes emptiness, if one realizes that phenomena are empty of inherent existence, one eliminates, destroys the extreme of nihilism. And if one realizes, or when one realizes dependence arising, then one destroys the extreme of eternalism. So through realizing emptiness and dependence arising according to the Prasangika view, Rinpoche presents that these two extremes are destroyed.
那东北人多少对那其他的肯定是一个人了，其他是那早一点没法来是谁不，没法来谁你看他不是有把他不吧，其他谁是的，早一点没法来谁的话，我没法来的路，安地路是个好关系，其他谁不吧，就是东北人多少对，其他肯定是一个人了，所以他们就把这刚这么就讲，刚了对吧？然后我们就这个东北东上那家伙用对，东北好过的。 就像东北人讲，那天来对呢，东北没人呐，然后就这边的脚就那这边去了。就像东北人讲，那天里啊，那具体的对呢听不见的，脚出来的都，现在天天人讲，东北人讲，东北你好好样对，你去他们去干的现在，对呢中啊的好也是积极的，那种对这个去那有的对的中啊，对这个去买一边的怕平均。 切些现在对的主把的好不同的，其实对的主把的我的对的越把好不多吧，越把好的，找一个让心马中呢，找一个没把的身边上了，没把的身边上了多土的，其实切他现的是过来。
刚刚这个你讲，上面讲什么吧？你看刚刚这个呢？
所以他们这 라시 마도 또 동반이 또 안에 제가 세계라고 안에 간에 세계라도 땡지게 또 비춰담이 라시 제제 최상제 강라마 라문의 민도 선배 통용도 또 안에 최대 간에 두스네 라문의 마주와 인상 아 유어줘야도 지시를 되는 것도 난 자신은 티도 사고도 해제 그래서 라시 죽되가 있나 유어줘야 되와 자신은 남자요 그래서 라시 마주와 동과 동성아 동이 내가 또 와인자 또도 다 라문의 저 자기는 민도와 매만하다 아니 최근에 둘렀나 현실을 뛰는 주바 현실을 뛰는 주바만 그도 현실을 뛰는 주도 사케인 거래 뛰는 주바 걔도 아니 여바하고 뛰는 여바다 하고 그래 제가 라시 말을 자와면 매력을 해서 삼도 도고 해시
As Geshe said, and as we said in the previous segment, if phenomena through realizing emptiness, then the extreme of nihilism is eliminated. So how does this work? So if a phenomenon, when one comes to realize emptiness, one realizes that phenomena are empty of inherent existence. So we heard last night and previously, what does emptiness mean? It means empty of existing inherently, or empty of being established by way of its own nature. So when one investigates and comes to see that a phenomenon is empty of existing by way of its own nature completely, and one comes to realize emptiness of inherent existence. And so when one realizes emptiness of inherent existence, one realizes that it doesn't exist independently. It doesn't exist without having to depend on anything else. And that then implicit understanding leads to the next step, which is to understand that this phenomenon that is empty of inherent existence, how does it exist? It exists in dependence on other, independence on something other than itself, independence on imputation or cause and effect. So therefore, it's empty of inherent existence, but still exists in that, but it is a dependent arising, dependent on imputation, dependent on causes. Whereas, if, as it appears, a phenomenon appears to our mind, it were inherently existent and not dependent, this of course would not be the case. So when then one comes to see how do phenomena exist, they don't exist inherently, but they do exist as dependencies, as one thing dependent on another. So therefore, phenomena do not exist in the way that they appear to our mind inherently, but it's not that they are non-existent, because they exist one dependent on another. So the previous segment was the realization of emptiness. It was explained how that eliminates the extreme of nihilism or the extreme of non-existence. So now let's look at how the realization of dependent arising eliminates the extreme of eternalism or the extreme of existence. Here, when one comes to investigate phenomena, or any particular phenomenon, one comes to see that it is not independent of anything other than itself, it's not self-dependent, rather it is a dependent arising, it's dependent on other than itself, such as imputation or causes. So therefore, it does not exist by way of its own nature. It is not self-existent. And this is the belief that is the extreme of eternalism, or the extreme of existence, that exists by way of its own nature. When one comes to realize dependence arising, one realizes that no phenomenon exists by way of its own nature, rather they are dependent one on the other. The reason that we're looking at this presentation, the reason that Lama Tsongkhapa wrote this or composed this text, is because it's through meditating in the way that is being presented here that we will be able to completely eradicate the root of all our suffering and attain liberation from suffering, attain freedom from suffering. Moreover, through meditating in the way that is presented here, our mind of bodhicitta, this too will grow and strengthen. And if we do engage in these meditations repeatedly over a sustained period, even if you don't come to realize emptiness, through becoming more habituated to the presentation of dependent arising, this has a profound impact on ourselves. We become far more content, far happier within us. Our afflicted minds, such as anger and attachment, reduce significantly, and virtuous minds, such as patience, strengthen significantly. So these are benefits that we will experience in this very life through meditating on in this way repeatedly over a sustained period, even if we don't come to realize emptiness. It was just said that through meditating this way, one does come to realize emptiness, then that will lead to the elimination of cyclic existence, our liberation from suffering, as well as to the strengthening of our mind of bodhicitta. So let's look at how that would come about through meditating in this way. We've heard previously that the ignorance of self-grasping. This is the root cause of all our suffering. And the reason for this is grasping at the self as existing in the way that it appears, as existing inherently. From this mind of ignorance that grasps at the self as existing inherently, all our other afflicted minds follow, such as anger and attachment. And those minds ripening within us lead to accumulation of negative karma. And that ripens in our various suffering experiences and keeps us bound within cyclic existence. And so that is this ignorance, and this ignorance of self-grasping is the root cause because of this process that follows, or the sequence that follows from it. And the way to eliminate this root cause is to develop a mind that is completely opposite to it, that's contrary to it. And being in ignorance, what is opposite to that is a wisdom. And in particular, the wisdom realizing emptiness, as opposed to the contrary mind of the ignorance of self-grasping. As we meditate in the way that's presented here, our wisdom slowly starts to strengthen, especially if we engage in these meditations repeatedly over a sustained period. Because through this process of repeated meditation, we strengthen our habituation to this way of thinking. So this means as our wisdom is growing, then correspondingly, the contrary mind, this ignorance of self-grasping, proportionately weakens. As our wisdom grows stronger, our ignorance proportionately weakens. And this means, as our ignorance weakens, the resulting afflicted minds become less powerful, less dominant, less frequent, and therefore that has an impact on the strength of the negative karma that we accumulate. And when the time eventually comes that our wisdom has become so powerful that we realize emptiness directly, then we eliminate this ignorance of self-grasping. When the ignorance of self-grasping is eliminated, is destroyed, then no afflicted minds will follow, because the cause that leads to the results of these afflicted minds, such as anger and attachment, is gone, it's destroyed. And if the afflicted minds aren't resulting, then what comes normally from afflicted minds, negative karma, also no longer follows. And in this way, one abandons cyclic existence, one attains liberation from samsara, liberation from suffering.
하고 완전 네 귀에 매버 쇠라 터지 여버데 하고 거래 니나 하고 완전 아지 나 니네 semjen디 니네 하고 인제 대술을 때도 고 다디 매버 쇠 진짜 디 동아 바 매버 쇠 바이나 아니 고 동아에 세 투사에 선비 잡아다 제와디 슈셰레야다 근데라 되네 진짜 산이 고마 토ye 장주심 장주심 디기 슈셰줘야디 디니스 주고 레지디마
The second point, the second impact that the realization or understanding of emptiness has was that it impacts on the strength of our bodhicitta. Our bodhicitta will grow stronger. So let's look at how our understanding of reality impacts on our mind of bodhicitta. When one hears teachings on these topics, one comes to understand the process of the process by which we suffer. And then when we don't leave it at merely hearing, but we then reflect on this to come to see whether this is true or not, and we come to then understand slowly, experientially, this process by which we experience suffering. So how from the suffering we experience comes from karma, which is accumulated under the influence of afflicted minds, such as anger and attachment, and they come from a root cause of ignorance or self-grasping. When we see that clearly, then this motivates us to eliminate this process, and we then start to meditate on emptiness, thinking about dependent arising, and when we start to, when we're doing that, we'll start to see the validity of that presentation as well. And in doing that, we'll start to have an impact on our own afflicted minds, our own ignorance and other afflicted minds, and negative karma. So what we are seeing here through the process of meditation is the validity of what we have studied. And we're doing so on an experiential basis. So then, certainly if we've realized emptiness, or if we are progressing towards the realization of emptiness, we will have a profound knowledge of reality, both intellectually and experientially, how the process of suffering comes about, as well as the elimination of that. And then, when we take that understanding that we have gained experience of, and we relate it to others, our understanding of what others are experiencing will be transformed, because we will understand that they are suffering in the same way as we are trapped in cyclic existence due to our own ignorance, but they do not understand what to do about it. They haven't even recognized the root cause of their suffering. So in this way, the compassion that we feel for others will be so much stronger because it is based on our own knowledge and experience. So we can maybe liken this to if we see someone swept away by a river, and if we are on the riverbank and there is nothing that we can do about this person, of course compassion arises for this person that we see flaying around before us in the river, desperate not to die. But if there's nothing we can do, the strength of our mind is going to be limited. But if we can see that there is a way that we can save this person, it may require great effort, but we can actually help this person, then this compassion will be that much stronger, and we'll go to great effort to help this person. So likewise, when you have identified the cause of suffering, as well as gained experience of how to weaken and eventually be able to eliminate suffering completely, then the strength of our love and our compassion for others will be that much more powerful. Our bodhicitta then will arise much more powerfully, and Buddhahood, the attainment of Buddhahood, due to the power of our wisdom and our bodhicitta, will come much closer. So this is how the reflecting on dependent arising, coming to understand emptiness, it has an impact on our minds of love and compassion.
아니 이게 나무도 겐지게 남자 상담이나 돈이 모두 왜네 당하고도 내 나스 중간에 나서 아주기 지금 현재 소설에 네버로 강아지야다 이제 쇼베네다 이니까 저기 강아지가 엔딩이 남자 상담하는 네 펭귄어레스 나가는 펭귄에다나 에네 소설이 미치게 소설이야 아니 저기 투어를 잡아야나 아주 민디 투어 잡아야도 아주 텐데 남자 상담하고 미디가는 미디페도 저래서 파콘을 사셔야지 남자기 투어 잡아야도 안 디기 안 괜찮네 아니 남자기 코라사 투어 파견이 안 파셔도 코를 슈슈샤차다 아니 슈체적으로 와 지금 파셔도 코를 슈체는 아주 코를 슈체다 가슴 질이야 진리다 나중에 제가 편주이나 맞아야래 미니 편주이네 진리다 디차고로 봐 네가 저기 땡땡이 남자 상담 거 봐. 다 두고 봐. 근데 자다 되게 갑질이야. 아니 미치게 소수야 코러서 내가 기회나 아니 소수기 상담에 땡땡이 상담에나 오다고 말에 내리게 가르치는 내리기고래. 가르쳐요. 가르쳐 뛰고 그랬어. 다시 규칙이 뛰고 그랬어. 가르쳐 뛰는 거 내가 치고 상담에나 다니 말 내가 이제 코러서 하셨어. 그래서 코러서 하면서 코르 왕기 아니 미팅할 때 버쳐버렸어. 그래서 미코로를 코러서는 미래를 장화 용하지. 코르디 견지샤스미 미래야 아주 그 미팅 내가 제외는 만주들의 소금 투하시고 소금 투하다. 하와도 미래 아데 코로기나 소소이나 코러서는 미래 투수셔야 미리 견지셔야 되는 것도. 그래서 코러서에 미코로를 장화 용하래. 아주 미래를 인지 선배가 삼다 치다. 나 코로서에 딱 가서 기우면 와다. 아, 谢谢大家，这9年完了，我拿迎接什么的，后来迎接呢，我刚刚的生活哇，但刚刚的看那生活的时候，他很空了稍微呢，但是点呢，我空了数千出来是，你这个度假准备呢，但是点呢我都出来嘛，得压住嘛的是，但是现在俺那很怕，讲把咱这位弄丢了，讲把咱这位团呢，俺考了考了慢慢把钱，俺考特些钱，把这位呢，俺考空了西住。这是为呢，安迪可能的是差一点，那是差一点什么的。我都是呢，上大为呢，俺这个水不公面的，水不公推啊的，俺爬出来啊，俺的年纪大啊，俺呢爬出牛这边呢，爬出来爬了呀，牛边个连呀，牛嘛有些，讲这套呢，俺呢连络呀的，俺这里用土的，俺这里在俺娘他我考了的，你考嘛这你两个的介绍。나는 저거 가르쳐서 소수리야지 삼다 소수리 저거 마지막 왔다 콜레니에 제가 고단이 되지 상메디는 유디니스 때 말에 기스티니 셰바 어디 거니에 와서 이 로토시로 와서 되게 삼다제 한 모험바나 셰리야 진셰디 양무도 선비기 세미야 셰리 뉴는 삼아 내가 이 세미야디 어디니 때문에 삼다보다 반도 친구 아주 그들을 그냥 반도 친구도 아직도 와
Die Petendetama, denn die missionale Lumnanson, denn der Zapitelle, die Ninji dann Zapitelle, ne Java de
ni le 가르치샤. 그래서 니 나고 넘비 두셔 셰가 어디 긴지 거 공부하고 와서 제가 마음바는 니네시 누르습니다. 샘선지야 레켜고
One makes efforts in this meditation on dependence arising. There are many benefits that will come within this life, even if one doesn't attain a realization of emptiness. This understanding of dependence arising can help us whenever we experience problems and difficulties, whether it's illness or any other kind of problem. So let's take, for example, conflict that we may have with people. So it's just a fact of life that sometimes relationships are not harmonious and that there may be conflict between people. So conflict then comes about if someone so let's say we're in a situation where someone is angry at us, they criticize us. Maybe it's valid, maybe it's not, but they're giving us a hard time. So as ordinary people who have not engaged in meditation over an extended period of dependence arising, our pride is going to naturally arise, and we're going to feel offended, even if we have done something wrong, and we are going to stand up for ourselves, and we're going to respond in kind, and feel that our anger is justified. And when we do this, we clearly are unhappy, our mental peace has been destroyed. The person before us who is clearly angry, they are only going to get angrier now when they see someone before them with a red face and bulging eyes. So the situation just deteriorates. And this is something we all have experience of. We see it around us in society with people that we know in our families and place of work. We observe this. And we see this in events in the world as well. So this is, of course, an unskillful way to deal with problems and difficulties. Rather, if one has over a sustained period been meditating on dependent arising, then even in difficult situations like this, where someone confronts you perhaps in an aggressive manner and speaks to one in an abusive manner, due to one's habituation or familiarity to the presentation of dependent arising, that is what will ripen in our mind. Our understanding of dependent arising is what will ripen in our mind, rather than a sense of pride and anger. So we'll then think, this person now is angry. And why are they angry? It hasn't self-arisen, it's not causeless. Their anger is a result that came about independent on causes. Moreover, that anger is strong and dominant within that person now. I can hear that from their tone of voice, I can see that in their expression. So this person before me now has no freedom. This person is controlled by this afflicted mind of anger, which has come about independent of causes and conditions. So what we are doing with this process here is we are separating this person from their mind of anger. We're not seeing them as this mind of anger, but rather seeing the person as being controlled by anger. When we do that, our mind has space, because our afflictions aren't arising. We then are engaging in the practice of patience. Our mind is staying undisturbed in the face of adversity. With our mind undisturbed, we are able to reflect further on dependent arising, seeing that all that's happening before us is there are ripening afflicted minds ripening seeds within this person before us, resulting in this afflicted mind, which is dominating and controlling them and destroying their longed for happiness. Thinking like that, compassion arises within us. So the practice of patience enables wisdom and compassion to rise within us. And then we can respond in a skillful way to this person, because our mind is peaceful and calm, and it's dominated by wisdom and compassion and love. And then we can respond in a skillful way. Whatever we see is best in that situation, maybe explaining what actually happened, or apologizing, or saying nothing, but we have the capacity to respond skillfully. And then we can also, especially if we are skilled in this practice of dependent arising, even in that moment, or perhaps at a later date, think, so did I do something that caused this anger? Because we may have done something wrong. And if so, then we can apologize for that, and we can make the commitment not to act in this way again. And our commitment not to act in that way again is not done out of fear and not done with the motivation of not wanting to be reprimanded, but because we don't want to cause unhappiness to someone else. So in this way, we can, through meditating repeatedly over a sustained period of dependent arising, great benefit can come to us in this very life, even if we haven't realized emptiness.
Gyudan Kendi Drupsawa and Nazi Yoyare, the sheep Kotoya, Tabio, Nazi. And Nazi Yovan Gyudan Kinch, the Yovares, Zanda, Tinizada, Among Legic, Dadamana, Gyudan Kinch, Nazda, Gyudan Kinch Yovan, Namchi Sena getting the Saji Diana. Gyudan Kinch Yovan, Naya Gyudan Kinch Yovan, Dadamana, and Java negative. She's not the Gyudan Kin Drupsare, that now the Jigus. Tisha and Jamana, that's the young Wachagris and some of that. And Dinigi, Gyudan Kin, the Tiniardia, and Ranzuki, Yamana, the Chicken, Leana Massage, Lingo, Tiniza, the Mohopana, Dinigi, that's Mohalia, and the Kachos and Shannon, Nibi Chavada, and the Chicken, DB, said the Chicken. Nada, gave each out to Bana, and then Digi were to give each out to gains and give each out to Rai. Tuvelia, and to give same shoe share to her down. And denied that, or the Machibu might be Chandala at the Naza, Gudan Kian Saji, Gudan Kian did it in the table, National Pures at the Ninjas and the Ninja Comiata. On do some Dawina, and to give near Nazi, near Nazi there, and near Nazi simply a car to
So, for the further ways that we can use dependent arising, through our familiarity with meditative dependent arising, when we encounter unwanted situations, when we encounter problems and difficulties in our life. So all of us from time to time we experience illness, sometimes minor illness, sometimes serious illness. But often when we are ill, even if it's a minor illness, this disturbs us tremendously. We become unhappy, we feel sorry for ourselves, our self-cherishing arises, and I really wish this wasn't happening, why is this happening to me? All these kinds of thoughts arise within us because of our self-cherishing mind. But if we've been meditating on dependent arising, then when illness strikes, what immediately, due to our habituation to meditate in dependent arising, what will immediately arise to us, within us, is this illness is a result. It's come about in dependence on causes. And so, why am I getting upset? The causes and conditions have come together, a result follows. That is just how karma works. There's no point getting upset about this, or getting angry or frustrated about the situation. That's how it works. Now that the causes and conditions have come together, the result has come, all that's left is, on one hand, I seek medical advice and I follow it. And secondly, I use this now in my meditation to think that this is a clear illustration of dependency. That through accumulating causes, results follow. Now, the negative cause that has led to the suffering result has ripened, it's exhausted. I will not have to experience this again. And as I'm experiencing this now, with a positive mind, thinking about dependent arising, I've experienced this negative imprint in a way that's actually not causing me particularly big problems. And moreover, with a stronger certainty in dependency and karma, we then can make a commitment to ensure, or strengthen our commitment to ensure that we put an end to the accumulation of non-virtue, of negative karma. Because we don't want to have these unwanted situations. Even if our mind isn't particularly disturbed, we are physically limited. So we can strengthen our commitment to not harming others through our way of acting, verbally communicating, or even thinking. And moreover, we can strengthen our commitment to benefiting others in any way we can. So in this way, through thinking about dependent arising, and how this illness has come about in dependence on causes and conditions, we can deal with the suffering, transform that suffering, and commit to accumulating virtue and refraining from non-virtue. And furthermore, being aware of others who are suffering, but who are suffering without having trained in the presentation of dependent arising, they are not able to transform their suffering. In this way, our compassion for others rises. And then, if we're at this stage, with strong compassion within our minds, we are not suffering. Our mind is virtuous and positive, committed to being of benefit to others with what remains of our life, and we are not suffering. So this then is a further way that we can use our knowledge of dependence arising to transform suffering. These are, so it's because of this multitude of benefits that arise from first intellectually understanding and then having gained habituation to meditation on dependence arising, that Geshe is praising the Buddha for having taught this this presentation and has composed this text. This brings us then to the 12th verse. If the opposite to that is seen, what is empty is unable to perform an action, and what performs an action cannot be empty. You assert that one falls into a terrifying abyss. If the opposite to that is seen, and this then refers to if the opposite to the presentation of the Prasangika that the Buddha taught is seen or is understood, then there are problems. So what this refers to, as we've heard a couple of times now, this is referring to the views of the non-Prasangikas. So for them, when they hear that something is a dependence arising, this serves to strengthen their belief in phenomena being inherently existent. It serves to strengthen their grasping at inherent existence. So that is what is referred to if the opposite to that is seen, the view of the non-Prasangika. That leads to the second line. If the opposite to that is seen, what is empty is unable to perform an action. So this then again is the view of the non-Prasangikas. So they hold that if a phenomenon is empty of inherent existence, it is non-existent. A phenomena, for it to exist, has to have its own self-nature. And if something lacks its own self-nature, it is non-existent. And if it's non-existent, of course, it cannot be a cause leading to a result, or it cannot function. So their understanding of dependence arising is mistaken. And moreover, their understanding of emptiness is mistaken. So they believe that if phenomena are not inherently existent, if they have no self-nature, they are non-existent. And if they're non-existent, they are unable to perform an action, or a cause cannot lead to a result.
Tenji Namsha Javadan, Javadan, Jehu said, Yoga, there are Rashi to Toma Yoma, yes. Rashi to Toma said Yoma, yes, or Rashi Juba the child, Remato, Yudan, Yen, Shana, Jaji, Namsha Yeta, and then Rashi Juba child, Remato, Rashi to Toma said Yoma, yes. That he conjugated
And furthermore, again, staying with the non-Prasangika view, and what performs an action cannot be empty. So something that is a dependence arising then has to be inherently existent. It cannot be empty of inherent existence. It must be inherently existent. And so something that performs an action, this then is dependence arising, because from the action comes a result. And if it's a dependence arising, it exists. If it exists, it cannot be empty. It has to be inherently existent. So again here we see the fault in their view. In brief, they believe that if something is a dependence arising, then it cannot be empty of inherent existence. If something is a dependence arising, it cannot be empty of inherent existence. Whatever is, and conversely, is the same, and conversely, whatever is empty of inherent existence, if they were in their view, if there were something empty of inherent existence, it cannot be a dependence arising. And the fourth line. So you assert refers to the Buddha. So the Buddha has taught here that these non-Prasangikas, for them, they hold that if phenomena are dependent arisings, then they have to be inherently existent. So this means they accept the extreme of eternalism, or the extreme of existence. Likewise, they also believe that if a phenomenon lacks inherent existence, or is not inherently existent, then it is a non-existent. So in this way they fall into the extreme of nihilism, or the extreme of non-existence. So this the Buddha has taught. Geshe is saying here in this verse that the desired goals, the three spiritual goals within Buddhism, those of either attaining another favorable or good rebirth in a happy migration of a human or God, or the second being liberation from cyclic existence in its entirety, or thirdly, the attainment of the state of Buddhahood. For all three of these spiritual goals, the primary obstacle to attaining these goals is afflicted minds. It's the afflicted minds of each individual being. And these afflicted minds all have at their very root the ignorance of self-grasping. So it's this ignorance of self-grasping which is the cause leading to the afflicted minds, which are our primary obstacle to our spiritual progression and attainment of spiritual goals. To abandon this root cause, then one has to realize emptiness. So to develop this wisdom that realizes emptiness, the very best method is what is being presented here, and that is that of dependent arising, coming to understand dependency on causes and conditions, or dependency one thing on another, or dependency on imputation. Understanding this oneself, one can also see how those who are the non-pressing egos, whilst they have as a goal one of these spiritual objectives of good rebirth or liberation or enlightenment, because of a fault in their philosophical view, they cannot realize emptiness. They cannot eliminate the root cause of all their afflicted minds and the root cause of them remaining bound in cyclic existence. They are unable to realize emptiness. Seeing that for oneself, compassion will arise for these beings who may have given rise to a genuine wish to be freed of cyclic existence, a genuine wish to lead others to a state of enlightenment, but due to not being able to meditate correctly on dependent arising and emptiness, they are unable to realize emptiness. With such an understanding and such compassion for these practitioners, we then are encouraged to make effort in our own spiritual development so that we can be of great benefit to others. And to summarize what we've looked at this morning, this reflection then on dependent arising, meditating on this repeatedly, it will have a great impact on how we deal with the problems and difficulties within our life, and also it will not only enable us to have a greater understanding of how our suffering comes about, but also to understand how happiness comes about. We will understand then much more clearly, or in a way that has a greater impact on our minds, what actions or what ways of thinking we need to abandon, what ways of thinking we need to cultivate. So this then leads us to wanting to make greater effort to be of benefit to others, to help others. It leads us to wanting to make greater effort in our practice and to overcoming obstacles we have to reading, to receiving teachings, to reflecting on the teachings. It will also develop within us the spontaneous response when we see others engaging in virtue, to rejoice and to encourage others. And also to live a life that is an inspiration, an example to others. So this comes about through reflecting on dependent arising, seeing how desired results come about in dependence on specific causes, how undesired results come about in dependence on specific causes. So that then leads us to be much more committed to abandoning what will lead to suffering, so to refrain from the non-virtue, and to cultivate minds that lead to happiness, engage in virtue. This then leads to a great strength of mind and spiritual progression. And as a very foundation for one's spiritual progression is the mind of ethical conduct. So through this reflection on dependent arising, our ethics become very powerful, and our ethical motivation becomes one of refraining from non-virtue, not because we feel we made a promise to do so, but because of understanding the results that come from certain behavior and the results that come from other kinds of behavior. So this is some of the benefits that come from reflecting on dependence arising. So I will finish here for this morning session. If you have some questions, then feel free to ask.
In the meditation on emptiness that Gemma outlined last night, there was no meditation on the mistake of seeing the whole collection as as an object to negate in meditation.
By collection, do you mean the collection of the body parts, the collection of the mind, or the collection of the body and the mind?
Well, the collection of the parts, however you divide it, body and mind, being one with the sense of self. Okay. So can I say something on, so last night in the meditation on selflessness, we looked at how the self cannot be found in any individual part. But what about, can I say something then on how the self cannot be found in the collection of parts? No, in the self being seen to be one with the collection.
The self being seen to be one with the collection of parts.
Yeah, that mistake of seeing the oneness of the self and the whole collection of parts.
Okay, so this one and many, yeah?
It's the one.
Okay, Deni dambung kelam dakme kong kabye de kolasonso. Deni de kolakung kachi chikshugite. Also chiktam duma de kolasona. Lama. Deni dambung kelam di duma rapo de kolama kosonso. Also dak also chasi namula nare di lu dam sengi chasi namula ragimale. Deni di chik de la young Hagmai, and a qualities some of them. Can you clap on Shimpatuna? So, Supokichashi Samaduna, Yamina Maso Sen Samaduna, Yamina Supodam Sen Ni Samaduna, de Damato Ransigita and Rawaya, de Canvas Angel.
Which is a Yuna.
Suppodan Senni, Chasamduna, then it did, near Ducky, some people. Then a day can spangere.
It can spangere.
Some of them can there. Then a duck, a campanano mare, a concho mare, a number seven mare, Samaduna, then it can looked up on it.
Did Tsongkhapa Ngana Zuge Das Diet same now, which is on due to what Das Halu Dasha. But the Ngana sometimes another some the Das said you support the same sort of due I some days in some day. Then social sometimes the other machine you support the I some similar I some. Just now to support the same version do you have my version, the other some do. Just some do. Just that I want to give. Dini samda wene ngare sengo mare. Dini insa nga se di ganis ta mare la ne nga zu dashi yana kumbo la ta go yana sem la ta go re nga se nga zu ta ya di samsam nga zu chowa la ta go nga zu chowa dewa shi nga di bu isi chowa dewa la ta go re. Dini nga zu gu shi di nga zu gi go de kapla ane nga ni su se su bul pa ta go. Chisa nga zu sem da zu da dini ya ane nga zu If you look at Takshan Deko Somiyate, well, look at Somiyate, then he Subu said the same you talk about the Gade says some good and some good or Jebachina. Then the Jeba Majeva, also the Omades and Nana themselves, Subu some talk and Gade something moved it. When the Jeba J or you Kabla, Subu that some talk and Gade is in it, and I had something but there isn't. So when we are sitting here and we think of the sense of self of I, then yes, we'll think of this collection of our aggregates, our body and our mind. But when we investigate, that's not what would come to mind, that I am all of this together, this collection. Then what comes to mind is something other than that. And then we come to see that this feeling or the sense of self on the collection is a mere imitation, because it cannot be found when we investigate. And when we are investigating, that is not how the self appears to the mind as this collection. Andy?
Are permanent phenomena which are not themselves causes and effects still dependent upon causes and effects?
So permanent phenomena do not come about in dependence on causes and effects.
Yes, they are not.
They are not causes and effects.
Are they dependent upon?
But are they dependent on causes and effects? Okay, thank you. Then tapa yoga. Console. Okay. You can attend jumpe tenjum level. Tapa. So permanent phenomena are not dependent on causes and results, causes and effect, causes and conditions, but they are dependent on imputation by mind. So they're not the former, dependent on causes and conditions, they are dependent on imputation by mind. Does that answer your question? No? Then ask your question again, please.
Well, so can I give an example? So if you take, say, the emptiness of the cup, which is a permanent phenomenon, surely it's dependent upon the cause of the cup.
Okay, so it's the emptiness of the cup, then, which is a permanent phenomenon, not dependent on the cause of the cup. Okay. Then Bumpa ki tumpani de, Bumpa ki tumpani de, Bumpa ki gyula tene marebe.
Bumpa ki nanshi tumpani de kor gyula tene marebe.
Tene marebe singuraka?
Bumpa ki Bumpa rashin chulu tumpani toni shorba, di gyula tene marebe. Gyula marebe, takar.
Lisa bakosam, yine gyulsin singuraka?
Ko takar.
So no. The emptiness of the cup is not dependent it's not dependent on causes. It's not dependent on causes. And then I was going to understand, give me a reason. He said because it's permanent. So there you go. Okay. Alan?
Just last night, Geshe was talking about imputing I on the most subtle mental consciousness, which goes from life to life. And he said that it couldn't be I because it has a past, present and future. So is the that subtle mental consciousness, is it also, it has a past, present, and future, therefore does it have an arising, abiding, cessation, arising, abiding, etc.? Is that subtle mind behaving like that, and is that why it has a past, present, and future?
So is the reason why the very subtle mental consciousness that was mentioned last night also can't be the I because it has past and future, is the reason that it has parts because it arises, abides, and disintegrates. Yeah? Okay. Then also, Yikinapa Shepa Tramote, Nazo Dakmade, Karietsa, the Kechik Muma, the Kechik Chema Yale, Dankon Tisons. Then Yikinapa Shepa con Kira, Yepa, Chikpa, Sum, Kenjen, Chashe Yale. Kitendere.
Geshe ama chima de ama de kiore, ni geshe ama chima kuro. Just go kiwa chiba, just the nigga say kiwa, the unit detail
so in brief, yes. So the subtle consciousness, the subtle mental consciousness, which has a previous and future, this then arises, abides, and disintegrates, and therefore if one investigates, one will not find anything